I will try to explain what is inversion of control, dependency injection, and dependency injection container. And also I will tell a little bit about service locator and why it's good, why it's not good, all that stuff about service locator. and this video tutorial I also will I will show about, I will bring a little bit example of everything that I'm doing, and try to explain what is all these conceptions. Okay, first of all, let me explain what is inversion of control. And inversion of control, it's I would say that you want, for example, you have a class that this class has properties or something inside that you don't want to initiate this property right inside the class, but you want to just set this property to the constructor or some kind of things. That is why there is another concept like the dependency injection container. It's related to the inversion of control. It's this like conception of dependency of inversion of control, and it says that dependency inversion of control. It says that the something, the data comes from the external sources. External source, not right inside the class or maybe module that you have. And there is why dependency injection and dependency injection container is just rules that how you can do inversion of control. Let me explain that. Let me briefly bring an example how you can do that. For example, you have a class that's let's call it like dependencies, just dependencies. Okay, dependencies container, maybe container. And the first rule of the DI, dependency injection, or the rule of this is that everything that you have comes to the constructor. For example, you have a class. Yes, that just bring just for example, you have a string data, and you don't want to initiate this one right inside the class, and but you want to set this value for this variable to the constructor. For example, you can do this like something like title. Maybe you can set the value right inside here, but we want to set this data to the constructor. For example, dependency container. Yeah. Maybe you can do this just data, or even you can do with the named parameters like require this data, and it's good. And you may ask what is the reason, what we can do with this one, why it's so so good to use dependency injection container. What is it? This is the dependency injection. It's the rule, I would say. This is the rule to inject the data to the constructor. But the dependency container is this one that has some kind of properties, and you want to set up these properties to the constructor. This is the dependency container that does the rules of DI. Without DI, it's not dependency container. That is why all of them are related to each other, I would say. That is why dependency injection, it's as I said, it's just you will set the data to the constructor. It doesn't matter. For example, you have some functions, some methods in the class. Yeah, some method that you want to inject something to the constructor. There is the DI. For example, some string, data, and data. There is a di. Okay, and there is why the inversion of control is it's a principle how to make your code better, scalable, and also maintainable, for example testable also. It's very good to use. Remember that dependency injection, it's very good to use in order to make your application better and scalable, maintainable, testable, and some kind of things. I'll say, okay, you may ask that I just brought example in this type of in this type, and for example, just you have much more classes, not this kind of classes, that this kind of properties that you have inside the container. For example, you have a data, just let's write the interface. Yeah, interface, for example, you have a repositories that makes a request to the server. That makes request to the server. What's happening? That makes request to the server, but you have a realization of this class. For example, you have a Laravel repository. Yeah. For example, you have Firebase repository. And you want to, you have some kind of authentication methods inside the repository, that every implementation of this class should implement the function that we created in an interface class. And in this moment, for example, in this moment, you have a dependency container. You have a repository. Yes. You have a repository. And you want to inject this repository to the constructor, and this container doesn't concern what kind of things should do this repository, what kind of data should come to this repository, to the constructor. It doesn't concern about this one. That is why you have to somehow inject this repository, and in the future, when you want to do something like just authentication, use the authentication of this repository. It shouldn't be concerned what kind of implementation of this repository will be handled there. And there is why dependency injection, it's very good, inversion of control is very good to use. And it's also solves the problem of tight coupling, because if you heard about this tight coupling, high cohesion, this principles means that allow coupling, each class, each module should be allowed depend on other dependencies. For example, if we do this one right inside this module, yes, for example, you have a Laravel repository. If we do this here, right inside here, it's high coupling, it's tight coupling. It's not good to use because it's not testable. What happens if in the future, when you want to test this specific class, yeah, in the tests, and suddenly you want to mock this authentication method, but you don't know how to mock it because you injected this one right inside here, and you can't use mocks, and you can create mocks and inject it through the constructor, because it's right inside here. That is why it's saying that you can remove here, and it's everything working fine. But it's very bad to use this kind of realization. That is why when you want to somehow send this the class is depends on the other dependencies right inside here. It shouldn't be like this one. There's other classes should be injected to the constructors, other dependencies should be injected to the constructor. This model shouldn't know what it should do in the future, what kind of repositories it should work with, and also what kind of methods of which repository of which dependency it should call. That is why it's not good enough to use. That is why we can remove here, and inject it right inside repository, and you may ask that why we are creating this one, why it's good to create this one, dependency container, dependency injection, and some kind of places. Let's imagine that you have a for example, you have a main method, yes, that runs the app, okay. Let me explain that. For example, you have some kind of classes, some kind of dependencies that it should work throughout the app, throughout all files, all the app. That whenever you want to go inside any screen, doesn't matter. Yeah, when you want to go inside any screen, you want to get those dependencies that you want to get and use them inside there. But in this particular moment, some another realization, some another solutions comes to you, like get it package, and or even the Google's one, injectable. If I'm not doing any mistakes, it calls injectable, and it works like similar to the getit, but I think that it uses getit inside itself. I'm not sure enough, but because I haven't used this one, but I know about this one, that other companies, I know some people that use this one, but I haven't used this one myself. But I know about this one, getit. It's some kind of service locator that injects some dependencies, and anywhere at your application you can get those dependencies. But I will say to you that it's not good to use. No, I'm not saying that it's not bad to use. You can use this, but in the specific small applications that you for example 2 screens, 3 screens, that screens have some kind of information about something, or maybe. But when your application is growing, it's getting better, it's scaling, you will notice that maybe when you're testing your applications, you will notice that you can't test your modules, you can't test your screens, you can test your specific functions, or maybe some kind of place, your specific classes, because getIt, it's I would say the getIt is just a container, the box, I would say it's a box that keeps all the dependencies inside, and wherever in your application, when you want to get this specific item from your box, you can get that. I'm just bringing an example. getIt uses exactly the same. That is why, for example, getIt, it's similar to this one. For example, you have a class with change notifiers. Your class with change notifiers, simple state management managers in Flutter, that you can use this one. For example, with change notifier, and for example, you have a service that makes requests to the server. Maybe you have some kind of local databases, remote databases, but you do what you do. You do, for example, like, let's go abstract interface class database, database, and the final class local database implements database, final class remote database implements database, and some sort of class that look like this one. And instead of doing database, instead of doing it, I'm showing how the getIt works. For example, in the beginning of your application, you can register factory, or maybe register a singleton of your databases. You can do similar to this one. I don't remember. I used this one before. A local database, some sort of like this one. Or maybe you can register your factory. Doesn't matter. But your code should look like similar to this one. And I don't remember how it wrote, but it was similar to this one. For example, you have a database, and instead of injecting your database to the constructor through the DI, you will do like getIt, yes, or maybe like something like this one. You can getIt in your database, and in the end, for example, in some companies, and when you notice that your application is growing, you want to write a test, and you will see that doing like this one, you have a lot of files, a lot of folders that all your module wrote like this one, and suddenly you want to write test, you will see that all of the dependencies was injected to the getIt, right from the getIt, and you can use this one. No, you can use the getIt. You can use them maybe through the constructor. You can use them like setting them through the constructor using getIt. But I've seen that a lot of people don't use constructors inside their models. They write like this one. They write similar to this one, and you can't test this one. And doesn't matter whoever does this gets the dependencies like this one, it may say that that person doesn't write tests. It means that anybody who writes and gets their dependencies through this similar to this one, they don't write tests. That is why what you can do, the best solution for this one, you can do like this database. It's better to use. It's much more better to use this one. And for example, you have a class change notifier. What you can do, you can go right inside your app here, inside the stateful widget, write notifiers class with change notifier, and class with change notifier, and you can use your local database or remote database. Local database doesn't matter, or even your remote database. Remote database. But in getit, what you can do, for example, in getit you can register singletons. That interface of that singletons is database, but it has some kind of names, I guess. Let's go inside getit documentation, and you will see that it has instance name. If I'm not doing any mistake, it has this instance name, and you can do instance name. You can write your instance name here and register two singletons. The first one is local, the second was remote database. Yeah, it has the instance name. When you're registering, yeah, you can write your instance here, instance name. And when you want to get this local database or remote database somewhere here, you have to write like getit database and instance name here, similar to this one, if I'm not doing any mistake. I don't remember. And it's looks like this one, exactly like this one, but you can find out yourself. You can write down yourself and see that I'm not doing any mistakes there. And let's go further, and I will say that register singleton database and doing like this one getit, it's much more, a lot of code, a lot of line of code that you can do instead of just registering your database, or maybe setting your database right inside to the constructor, through the DI. You will write a lot of code, line of code, and it's not good. That is why what I did, I injected my remote database, which is implementation for database, and it works with remote database. You know that? For example, it has some kind of function, some kind of methods inside. If it has, yeah, authentication maybe, authentication, or even other methods that interface should have. Doesn't matter what kind of. All of them are abstract methods, and implementation of these methods are inside the other classes that implemented that database. Okay, look. For example, when I go here and we have a text button here, yes, text button, and this text button will authenticate our user, our client. Notifiers call the we have here void authentication, yes, database and authentication. Remember that I will say you it's just a tip that everyone should do. Remember that every interface, every abstract method that you want to use should be future. Because why? You may ask why we have to make our methods future. Doesn't matter what it is. For example, in the future, you don't have to write future methods. It's just a synchronous method, not asynchronous. It's synchronous method that does something. But in the future, when you want to change your authentication method that it's future, you will say that it's future. I'm making a synchronous call somewhere in a database, or maybe not database, it's somewhere. But you will notice that when you do futures, it was synchronous method. It was without future. It was without future, but it suddenly wanted convert it into futures. And everywhere in your code that uses this database interface, it's the future one. It was the synchronous one, and that you converted. After you converted it, everywhere will in error. Everywhere throw an error, and I will see that that whatever I did, it was not good enough. You will see, you will notice that. And that is why it's better to use future methods. Doesn't matter, it's synchronous. Even if it's synchronous, always use feature methods. That is why. Let's go. And here, when you want to authenticate your user, here, notifiers. Let's change the name of this notifier because it's database. Change notifier. Let's just let it be this name. And you have an auth method, and you want to authenticate your user in some kind of place, and it will authenticate your user to the remote database. You have Laravel, maybe a Firebase, or maybe some kind of another implementation. But suddenly, when you want to change your code to the local database, you will do this one. That's all. There is nothing complicated thing. It's all, everything is good to use. Or maybe even you have a function that takes, for example, same change notifier, and if, as I said, the dependency injection is the technique that it's written here. There is a written here. Excuse me. It says that it's a programming technique in which an object or even a function receives objects from the external side, maybe some places that external sources, not from internal but external sources. That is why you can use a function that takes your database, and depending on your database, it will change your it will call the authentication method. Is it from the local one or maybe a remote one? That is why dependency injection is very good to use. And dependency injection, as I said, is just a concept. It's just a concept of injecting your dependencies through your constructor, through the function constructor, or maybe through the object control constructor. And this one, that is all thing that you have to know about. And let's talk about the DI container. What is DI container, you may ask? As I said, this is the DI container. It's similar to the DI container, but yes, it's a DI container because we have a parameter, and through the parameter we injected, through the dependency injection, we injected our parameters. Like every dependency that you added in your class should depend on the DI law, because that module should have a constructor, and through the constructor we will inject the dependencies, and everything inside every instance that inside the dependency inside the module should be injected to the constructor. And one of the most better to use dependency injection, it calls poor man's DI, or maybe you can call it poor DI. It means that every injection that you do, you do through you do it manually, and that is why. Okay, last but not least, remember that dependency injection is just a rule of using constructors, maybe functions, all of them things. Service locator will not be dependency injection. Dependency injection is another thing, service locator another thing. As I said, dependency injection, this one through the constructor, or maybe through the function constructor. Let's think that you have authentication, another authentication that has a database. What kind of database? It doesn't concern about the database. And through this database authentication, we'll do our IoC. And let's go. Database is this one, authentication, another authentication, and a remote database, or maybe a local database. You see? Because as I said, dependency injection, it can be through the constructor, function constructor, or maybe class constructor. Service locator, as I said, just imagine that you have a box. You will inject or maybe set up all your dependencies instances inside your box, right inside there, and you want and whenever you want to get your service locator, you will get from the box. As I said, it's not good. I said, remember that service locator and the dependency injection is not the same thing, and service locator is not good to use because it's not testable, scalable thing. Yeah, a lot of application out there that uses service locator, like GetIt. I use the GetIt, for example, but not for dependency injection or some kind of places, some kind of things. It's just a hash map that takes a type and some keys. Maybe you can create your own service locator, even that you're doing right here, right into application, right, getting injection dependencies right inside your model is not good. Just remember this one. There is another concept. There is, as I said, this dependency container. This one. Excuse me. The dependency injection is this one, and also this one. You are injecting your dependencies through the constructor. Dependency container is you have instances. Now I will create a dependency container. And inside this dependency container, I will bring an example to get access to your dependencies everywhere in your application without using GetIt. I will use this. I will show it to you how to use this one. And also, remember, the service locator is not DI. There's a lot of people out there. There are a lot of mobile developers, Flutter developers saying that service locator is dependency injection. No, dependency injection is not service locator. Service locator is not dependency injection. Okay, let's create our own inversion of control through the context. And using our own dependency injection, our own GetIt, I would say, through the constructor. And whenever we want to get our dependencies, we can get them through the constructor. And in this tutorial, I will show you how to use dependency injection container, and also all of them as well. Let's go. We have, let's remove this one and this one, remove. And let's run this application, this main method. Am I doing anything right? Okay. Okay. Okay, let's create a class. I would say not class. Maybe, for example, you have what you have. For example, you have a shared preferences. Maybe, or maybe you have a logger. Let's think that you have a logger. Yeah, you have logger. Let's go to the pubdev logger Flutter. Yeah, just to bring an example how to make your own dependency container to use the same instances of the single logger throughout your application. Like I will do similar to this getit. Getit is this singleton that registers singleton, that registers factory. But I will do similar to this one, that logger. You have a logger inside your dependency container, and everything that you have inside inside your dependency container will be injected to the constructor. Let's go. We will add this one. Your pubspec YAML.yaml file. Okay, and let's imagine that you have a class dependencies container. You have everything inside here that should be used throughout your application. Just imagine that if you have a block, and this block will be used everywhere in your application without using block providers. Maybe you have only inherited widget, some kind of thing, and you want to inject you want to use same instance of your block everywhere in your application. You can do this. You can do that exactly like this one. Or maybe you have a repository, and maybe you have a class that should be used everywhere in your application. You can do here. But remember that, for example, in the specific screen in your application, you have a block. You have to create a block. Just imagine that you have a cart application, or maybe store application that orders foods, orders products, maybe something like that. In order to, for example, you want to open some screen inside your application that gives information about your product, about the product. When you click on top of product, another screen will be shown there, and you want to create block right inside this screen. You don't. That is why. If you create the block right there inside when the screen opens, you don't have to put your dependencies here, because block or maybe some kind of another things, it has automatically dispose method that block disposes its own method. It has method that it has a method that automatically disposes the method block. Excuse me. That is why you have a dependency container and you have a logger. Yeah, you have a logger. You can do private, you can do public one, it doesn't matter. Or maybe you have another thing, you have another class. What kind of class it may be? For example, you have a shared preferences. Yeah, shared preferences. Shared preferences. Let's add this one too. Let's create a final class shared preferences helper, maybe, yeah. And you have let's see, it didn't add the dependency. That is why it's some kind of. Let's wait. Okay, we'll see what happens there, and we will continue. Oh, okay, it's finished. Shared preferences, start. Okay, you have a shared preferences. Let's say that it will be added later. No, let's go shared preferences, shared preferences helper. This, you see, I'm using dependency injection. And when it's done, we'll save string. Yes. Is it asynchronous? Save setpool. Setpool, is it asynchronous? Yes, it's asynchronous. Set string. We have string key, string value, sync, await. Okay. And this helper that you have, you want that this helper, this module, should be everywhere in your application. Yeah, that is why we can get this one and add here. We'll share the preferences helper, and we have let's do this one, name parameters. It's better to use. You may ask that why you are let's make it immutable, and let's make it immutable too. Immutable means that everything, every instance, every parameter that you are creating inside your module should be final one, and after that it will be when it initiates for the first time. After that first initialization, it will not be initiate the second time. That is why. And also this final also means this one, that we can change. You can remove this one, or you can write this one. It means that whenever when you want to change the constructor thing, for example, logger, logger, maybe you can do something like this one. It will not allow you to do that, because it means that it's final. It's final, and whenever I use this one for the first time, set up this one for the first time, the second time it will not allow you to do that. That is why the second one is our shared preferences helper. Final helper, shared pref helper. Okay, let's put our logger one. Immutable classes should be const one. That is why it means that I will put in the description about this constants, immutable things, and take a look about it. Links, because canonical instance, literal variables, and some kind of things. I will put the description about this immutable and some kind of things. Take a look, and you will learn more about what's going on here, why I'm putting immutable, why I'm making this required final, and some kind of place. Just imagine that we have a dependency container, and somehow we want to get access to this dependency container throughout the application without using any getIt, some kind of things. Look, this pattern, this concept that we used is dependency injection. But all of this is dependency injection container, because it used the law the load that dependency injection says. And for example, you want to somehow inject this dependency container to this main app, this material app, and you want everywhere in your application get access to this one. Even if you use navigator, or maybe even if you use that what was this the class's name, that Flutter navigator, and also overlays. Even if you use overlays, even if you use navigators, when you want to push somewhere another screen, you can get access to this dependency container. That is why, in order to get dependency container, we have to use our dependency container up from our material app, because it should be from upside the material app. In this particular moment, you can use provider. Provider uses inherited widgets inside itself, a wrapper around inherited widget to make them easier to use and more usable. You can use this one. How you can use? The first one, you can use multi-provider, or even just the provider. For example, just let me show you how you can do that. Flutter pop add the provider. I guess that I have this one already. Okay, and what you can do, you have a class shared preferences helper that helps to save string to using this shared preferences thing. Yeah, you may ask that why you are doing this one. Yes, it's also, I guess it's in singleton. And you may ask that why are you using this one? Why you are doing? We can use this right inside here. Yes, right inside here, and some kind of things you may ask, because when you want to test this one, as I said, you want to mock this one. Yeah, you want to give another actions to this specific function, to this specific method. But you can do this when you want to. You don't want to use the shared preferences directly here. For example, if you don't use this, yes. I guess it's shared preference. Instance get instance. Or even you can do like this one. Or even you can do this like this one. That is why. Without injecting your shared preferences here, you can use this one. But in the future, when you want to mock this one, when you want to test this one, you can do this one, because it will do exactly a code here without any like mocking this instance, the set string maybe. Yes, that is why always use dependency injection. It's better to use. That is why we created a class that helps us to create to save our string in a shared preferences. We have a dependency container that do something here, and in the end of this one, we somehow want to inject our dependency container somehow, that we have access this dependency container throughout the application. What we can do, let's create another class. We can call it dependencies scope, maybe scope. And let's create inherited widget. Yes, if you don't know about inherited widget, it's kind of widgets that sends our dependencies down to the widget tree, down to the element tree, and when we have access to the element tree, and we have access to the inherited widget that we are using. That is why when we want to have access to this inherited widget, we will write get our inherited widget, inherited scope, and anywhere from our application we have access to this one. Let's write dependencies scope, and material, and we will say that just we have our example here. Or is it better to use this one, I guess. Let's make it false for now. It means that the previous, whenever we want to, when it should be updated, we have to notify that if the previous dependency scope is not equal to the current scope that we have, it should be updated. That is why right now just put it false. Put it false, or imagine that you have, as I said, you have a dependency container here. Dependency container, just let's take them all and put here all of them. Okay, should preferences here, logger here, and we want to somehow inject our dependency scope, so we have access to the to the dependency scope throughout our application. What we can do, let's write this one, dependency content is required. This is a required one, and maybe we'll say that isn't true. By default, it's true, should be true. Okay, I will explain what is this and what is this one. Okay, it says that, for example, if we want to change something inside the widget, this will be called. For example, when we wanted to watch something inside our inherited widget, this line of code will be, for example, when we are clicking on the function on the text button, and text button incrementing the widget, the counter, and this time when we want to see that our counter is incrementing, we will write that we want to listen this one. We want to listen the changes. But this one, It's useful when you want to get access to this dependency scope only once, for example, not to listen this one all the time. That is why what we can do. I guess that let's write assert here. We will say that if result is not dependency scope, we'll do this one. Okay, everything is good. That is why where we will go to our main function, and we will initiate all our dependency container that we want to have access to. For example, we will go to our material app, to the material app that we are using here. We will initiate all our dependencies here. For example, we have in its initial state, yeah, late logger, maybe logger. No, I think that it's not good to use it here. We can do we can create our dependency scope here, dependency injection, dependency container, dependency container here, dependency container here, dependency container. We can create our logger here, final logger, yes, final logger, and also we can create our shared preferences, shared preferences dot preferences, how it's called, get instance. We can sure init. We already initted this one, yes. Shared preferences here, and we can use our logger here, logger for our dependency container. And as we said, we will get dependency scope, the dependency container for our scope here. And we can use shared preferences helper to take shared preferences, that's all. We created our dependencies. As I said, you can use logger, you can set up your own settings here, but in the shared preferences, we created our own instance of shared preference, and as I said, we will create our shared preferences helper that saves our string in the shared preferences. We created our all dependencies inside dependency container, this here, and somehow we want to pass our dependency container, so we can use our dependency somewhere, doesn't matter where, in our application. What we can do, we can pass our, it's better, we can use our inherited widgets right inside here, but it's not good, I would say, because the run app should run app, that's all. It doesn't concern about inherited scope or some kind of, that is why, as we have a dependency container here, and in the end of this code, I will share links, as I said, a lot of links, and good practices links that should be used in your application, the best patterns, the best templates of your Flutter applications from the best developers, because there are a lot of best developers, like they call their names are like Michael Azebny or maybe Fox. They are doing their job. They are very great at their job, at their work. That is why I will place. I will put links in my description, and you can take a look what's going on in the templates and in the code. And you have dependency container. We said that we have dependency container. We will get dependency container. Yes, it's simple one. Everybody should know how dependencies, how things should be injected in their classes, and that's all. We can create dependency scopes. Dependency scope here. We can use. Can you say dependency scope? It will take a child and our dependency container, and our child is app. That's all. That is everything that you can do, that you can have access. That's all. Look, we created our dependencies here. Also dependency container here. And I said that I will send these dependencies to the root app, which has dependency scope inside. And this dependency scope is inherited widget. Inherited widget, as you know, that it gives us an access to our everywhere in our application, to the context. We can get access to our dependency scope. That is why our dependency scope should be that in this place should be material app, and the material app should have const application. This one. Look, above our material app there should be dependency scope that we can access everywhere in application when we use overlays, navigation, doesn't matter what kind of things. And also material app, like this media query, theme of context, media query of context, all of them using inherited widget inside. Okay, let's check whether application throws error or not. Okay, and I'm missing plugin exception. Okay, it's about, I guess, we have to restart our application, so everything inside our application should be initialized properly. Nothing is there's no any exception there, throwing exception. Okay, we have a logger, as I said. We can use this specific logger everywhere in our application to the dependency container. Dependency container was injected to the root app. This is our main. You see, our main. We have a logger, shared preferences, and all these shared preferences were injected to the dependency container. Dependency container shouldn't concern what is inside logger, what is inside shared preferences, what kind of instances it will be injected to the constructor. That is why when we set it properly, we can inject it to the constructor, and we can use this one to the root app, and the root app also gives a dependency container to the constructor, And in the end, we use dependency scope, which is inherited widget, which is, there's any inherited widget, which is inherited widget above material app, so we can get access to the context to everywhere of our, from everywhere of our application to the context. We can access to the dependency container. Of course, dependency container, when we inject it here, we put here dependency container here, this. In order to make it better, let's put this one here. But there's a rules that you have to put your instances, your properties below static methods, below constructors. But in order to show you that it's we want to inject our dependency container right here, I will do this one. Okay, everywhere from our application we have access to this one, and if we go inside the text button, we will write dependency scope of context, which we want to listen. We don't want to listen this one. We want to get dependency container logger from the dependency container. We made it not nullable, yeah, that is why. And from the dependency container, what's happening here? We made it private. Why we made it private? I don't know. Let's do it properly. Logger, log, level, debug, and message. We added dependency container, or maybe IoC, for using context in our app. Okay, where we are getting shared preference self. Let's go take a look. No inherited found in this in context. Let's take a look why we are getting this error. We added IoC using context in our app. That's all. You see that through the dependency scope, we are getting access to this logger, which we created above in our application in a main method. And when we want to get access to this logger, we can do like dependencies of context. You can put this one below, above the scaffold, maybe, in order to have, if you have a lot of things to get to the constructor. What I'm saying, what am I saying? If you want to get to the dependency container, if you have a lot of actions, a lot of things, a lot of pressing things inside your widget, you can do something like this one. That's all. And also you can do similar to this one. Look, dependency container, should preference and helper, save string keys, key is Flutter, value is Dart, or maybe Flutter is value, key is Dart. It's a synchronous one, should be awaited, and then dependency container logger log our log debug, and also you can use dep container, show preferences, and if you want to show get something from your thing, you can use future void print string key preference get string key. You can use something like this one, print. What's happening? You see that this is the dependency injection. Dependency injection, this is the inversion of control. Everything is about high allow coupling, high cohesion. Everything is about not using tight coupling, because when your dependencies, when your something is high depends on something, it's very bad to test. That's why remember that you have to use IoC very careful, very clear also. Just you have to know what you are using properly. And as I said, allow coupling is about that your dependencies is not dependent. Your modules is not depending. It depends on other modules directly. Not the modules directly, and they are injected to the constructor. And high cohesion means that every class that you are using should done similar things. For example, it's similar to the single responsibility principle. It means that, for example, you have a function, and this function is authentication. Other classes, other methods that inside this class should do a similar thing, like logout, check the token, check the authentication, maybe some kind of similar things. And that is what I wanted to tell you about, that inversion of control in Flutter is very useful, and it's very useful. It's very testable. It's very scalable when you want to write big applications. And remember that if you are using Getit, I'm not saying that Getit is bad. Getit is useful when you are writing some applications that is not scalable. It means that when you're using Getit, it means that you don't write tests. If you are writing tests, if you are injecting your dependencies right inside the model without injecting constructor, it means that you don't write tests. It means this one. And also remember that IoC is just the principle dependency injection and the dependency container. It's the that one of the part of IoC. Service locator is also part of DI, but instead of injecting your dependencies to the constructor, the service locator, you will use directly in your classes. You will get your instances from the box, as I said, directly. And whatever I've done right now, it's very useful. I will set links down below in the description, so you can find more about other people, how other people do, in order to make all of you to show all of you that you have to write clean code. Don't believing, you don't have to believe of also some people that says that this is the dependency injection that you're using at it. It's don't believe them, because some people, they maybe they know, because in some places, in some other for example other languages, you may use like service locator, maybe some kind of this proper way, but when you're using Flutter, it's not. It's good, but it's I would say, when they bring other languages principles to the Flutter, it's not good, I would say. That is what I wanted to say. Some concepts about clean architecture, maybe some kind of things. Also, this video tutorial was about how to use inversion of control in your application, and in your application with using context. To the context, you have access anywhere from the inherited widgets, from the some kind of things, and that is what I wanted to say.